Oh dear. You know, last week we were at a friend's birthday party, and it was a surprise birthday party. And what was really cool is he was very surprised by us, but his sister and brother-in-law came from Montreal to visit and surprised him at this party, which was super fun. But what was really neat, for me of course, is that they were so in awe of our Vancouver weather. They were amazed at the greenery, and of course last week we were blessed with beautiful sunshine all week long. So, you know, it was kind of a little bit potentially like false advertising, but what was really neat is how delighted they were with the greenery, with the mountains, with the fact that we could sit outside at a restaurant under heat lamps in February. And it was a great reminder to me that we have much to be grateful for to be living in this city. So just thought I'd mention that, especially here right now, because I don't think in any other part of the country at this time there are crocuses that are starting to bloom. There are rhododendrons that are already blooming. Very, very cool.
Snow shovels.
Yeah, we don't even know what those are, thankfully. So.
That's growing envy back east. Except for the skiers.
What's really neat about it, though, is it becomes a time, especially when it's the beginning of Lent, a time of regrowth, a time of refocusing and looking with anticipation to new beginnings. So much as we're preparing our physical gardens at the moment for the sunlight and the warmth to come, so today I want to share with you some ideas for planting our spiritual garden so that our lives may also be filled with the beauty that we hope to have in our gardens outside. And so for ease of illustration, what I'd like to do today is to look at what we do to create a beautiful garden and draw some parallels for how we can create a garden and build a garden in our own lives from a spiritual, inside-out point of view. First, we begin with a vision. What do we want to grow? Some of us may think a garden is flowers. That's me. Some think a garden is vegetables. That's Walt. Some may think it's a fruit tree. Could be somebody else. We all have different visions. To keep it a little bit simple, let's talk about what the Bible says are the fruits of the Spirit. And if you'll bear with me, we'll use that as our picture of what our garden is going to look like today. Fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Ha! I know. You know, we always talk about the top three: love, joy, peace. We kind of leave the others behind, especially for me: patience, self-control, and sometimes gentleness and goodness is not really up there either. So it's easy to say that we want to show up as expressions of these things and we want them to grow. But we really do need to have a vision for ourselves if we want to make that happen. Are we patient? Are we kind? Do we demonstrate self-control? What is our vision? Good question to think of. What we do know for sure, and what I believe is true for every person on this planet, regardless of whether you are Christian, Buddhist, Islamic, any one of these that are on here and everything else, we all want love and joy and peace at our core. It is our human condition to need and want those. So let's begin with that as a vision. Then we want to plant good seeds. Seeds that will bear these fruits. And where will we find them? At the store, if we're buying a physical garden for ourselves, emotionally and spiritually, in our thinking. Current quantum physics, you guys know I love science, right? So current quantum physics has told us that everything at its core is energy. We're made up of cells, they're made up of atoms, atoms are made up of protons and electrons, which are made up of photons, which are made up of what they now believe to be the smallest known molecule, which is called a quark. It was only discovered in the 1970s, and by now, for all I know, there's something even smaller that they've managed to come up with. But at the moment, for the purposes of our discussion today, quarks are the smallest particles known today. They're best described, according to the sciencefocus.com, as vibration. So every single particle starts out as a vibration. We know this to be true in a different way, and that is that studies have shown that people can influence an experiment just by intending its outcome. We are able to influence our world around us. And we are truly in our infancy in understanding the science of it, and definitely we're further away from understanding and truly believing the power that that has for us. But yet, at some level, I think we all know this. How often have we thought of someone and we see them not a week later at the grocery store? How often has someone spoken about a word of a song or spoken about some movie, and 2 or 3 days later someone else mentions that very same thing? We are beings of energy. We are beings of vibration. We do have magnetic attracting power. Now think about that. That means that when somebody comes to you and compliments you and says, hey, you have a magnetic personality, you can say, yeah, I know. I do have a magnetic personality. I'm kind of quirky, too.
I know.
Thank you all. Because we're magnetically attractive beings, we are always creating, either consciously or unconsciously. It is our thoughts that create our experiences, because our thoughts have energy, and those energies define how we show up. Kind of heavy, isn't it? One thing I will add as a disclaimer, I neglected to do that earlier today, and I do it every time I speak. Please consider everything I say as a little buffet. Take what suits you, take what resonates with you, leave the rest. These are just ideas for me to share with you as possibilities. They may or may not suit you. That's okay. Much of it is because I need to learn it. So, to illustrate this point about energy, James Allen, in his book, As a Man Thinketh, which was written in 1902, likens our thoughts to a garden. You don't think I came up with this by myself, do you? He says in our quote, our minds may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. Whether cultivated or neglected, they must and will bring forth fruit. If no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless weed seeds will fall therein. This is as true for those who are out of harmony with their surroundings as of those who are content with them. It is universal principle. Man is buffeted by circumstances so long as he believes himself to be the creature of outside conditions. When he realizes that he is a creative power and that he may command the hidden equal negative seeds equal negative life experiences. Positive thoughts equal positive seeds equal positive life experiences. And we plant life-affirming, positive thoughts of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control if we want our garden to grow in a spiritual, joyful, loving manner. So, how do we nurture our seeds so that they grow? Just like at the nursery, we weed and feed. Let's contemplate weeding first. In a physical garden, we prepare a good seed bed. We remove anything that might choke the germination of that seed. Rocks, weeds, old roots are all taken away so that the seed has plenty of space to grow. And then we turn and we toss the soil so the seed isn't constricted, but is free to move toward the light. We make room for new growth. And spiritually, we can do the same thing. We can choose to prepare a thought seed bed by releasing any emotional rocks and roots and weeds that no longer serve us. When we hang on to stuff, whether it be physical or emotional, we impede and slow down the flow of good that is simply waiting for us to get out of the way. So to begin the weeding and the clearing, we might consider asking some tough questions. What grudges are we holding on to from the past? What are we still keeping alive that is choking this access to our good? We may be holding on to things from years ago. We may be holding on to things from yesterday. What about holding on to things that are worry about the future? What about concerns and fears about what might happen sometime down the road? Both the past and the future can impede our nowness. These misery-producing thoughts all clutter and choke the thoughts which create a life of love and joy and peace. We would be wise then to give no attention at all, no power at all to things that we don't want in our lives. Jesus said, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. Life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to his life? Since you cannot do this little thing, why worry about the rest? Seek first the kingdom, and all things will be given to you as well. The kingdom of God is right here. Choose to see the positive, and the appearances of fear, of worry, of lack will disappear. So, let's agree that we need to remove the roots and rocks that no longer serve us. And here's a big one. They call it a bomb, actually. The big rock called the other F word. forgiveness. Forgiveness. Sometimes it's so much fun and juicy to actually hang on to things, though, don't you find that? Forgiveness is nothing more than releasing the negative energy that we're holding onto about something. It doesn't condone what the other person or party did to us. It doesn't require their participation. It doesn't mean that it was okay. It just means that you're going to take that burden and place it down. The best case for forgiveness that I've ever read is by David Owen Ritz. He's got a series called The Keys to the Kingdom. And in this he quotes, "When you resent the past, you keep it alive as unhealed energy within yourself. Holding on to resentment in this way is like taking poison and expecting the other party to die. You never really repay the other party for the harm they caused by holding on to your feelings. In the end, you only succeed in harming yourself more because the energy of resentment is polluting your own life." End quote. The Buddha, of course, said it much more succinctly. He says, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at somebody else. You are the one who gets burned." I think that's pretty cool. Sometimes the person who needs the most forgiveness is ourselves. We've all made mistakes in the past. We've all said and done things that we wish we didn't. There are no do-overs for much of what we've done. And I think it would be kind, patient, gentle, to cut ourselves a little slack. We all do the best we can with what we know and with what we have at the time. If we knew differently, we'd do differently. That's all. So, let's create an emotional space for our new good by lovingly releasing from our lives those thoughts, those things, those people, and those beliefs that no longer serve us. They may have served us once, and now it may be time to bless them, release them, and make way for our new good. So we've seeded, and we've weeded. Now we feed. And then we weed some more. So, how do we feed our seeds of patience, our seeds of health, our prosperity, of joy, and of love? We pour the living water of love onto everything that we do. We deliberately set aside time, maybe every morning, maybe only on Sundays, but time where we can focus ourselves and decide how we will show up, what we will create today, how we will choose to express as God, and how we will choose to see God in every face. And we feed ourselves and our thoughts with this deliberate intention to be mindful of what we are thinking every single day. In Unity, we believe that God is all around and all through us, and that we, each of us, are expressions of the power that we call God. Some people will call it the force, some people will call it universal spiritual principle, some might call it Allah, some might call it divine mind. Whatever your name for God is, the important thing to remember is that we're all connected at some level to that power that we call God. And then, it stands to reason then that despite our exterior differences, we are all one. In the English translation of the Lord's Prayer, Jesus refers to God as our Father. In the Aramaic translation, the words are Father, Mother, Birther, and Breath of all. He doesn't say, my Father. He says, our Father. He doesn't say, Father of those who believe in me only. He says, breath of all. There's a massive message in that for us. He also said in Matthew, as you do to one of the least of our brothers, you do to me. We're all part of the same cosmic soup. Our challenge is to look beyond the barriers that we have created in our minds with our thoughts and look at the labels that we have attached to the appearances and recognize that those are the things that separate us from each other. The appearances look like we're different. And outwardly, we are. We have different skin colors. We have different genders. We have different ways of eating. We have different religious beliefs. We have different socioeconomic statuses. Some of us take the bus, some of us drive. We all have different exterior expressions. And yet the truth of it is, we are all expressions of the same energy, and we all basically want the same stuff out of life. Yes, there are yeah buts. Yeah, but what about murderers? Yeah, what about what's going on across the world where people are doing atrocious things that we hear about in the news every day? Those are also actions that are a result of consciousness and of thought. And I can't tell you that I know those answers. But from my peace-filled little vantage point here at Crescent Beach, I do know that I can close my eyes and send a blessing of love to every person who is affected in those terrible circumstances. The perpetrators included, the victims, their families, and all of us who are witness to these things that we don't understand. And this brings us to another way of feeding ourselves and our seeds. And that is to be grateful. As the Scotiabank slogan says, you're richer than you think. We need to set a daily intention to look around us and see all the good that is ours to have and that we are so blessed to enjoy, especially in our community. Feeding our garden means trusting that despite outward appearances, good will be the ultimate outcome. As the saying goes, the best exotic marigold hotel is where I heard this. Everything will work out in the end. If it hasn't worked out, it's not the end. So, following our analogy of a garden, we've seeded, we've weeded, we've feeded. Not good English, but it works, so just roll with me on this. Now we need to continue to weed. Following as time passes, then our plants grow. We need to continue to get rid of the unwanted stuff. we need to weed out the thoughts that no longer serve us. And this is where I fall down. And I'm hoping I'm not the only one. Time and again, I sow that seed of good intention. And time and again, I find myself focused on what is wrong. Time and again, I should on other people. Time and again, I should on myself. This maintenance is a crucial part of how we tend our garden. It requires courage and self-control and a willingness to be honest with ourselves about what we really intend. We observe our thoughts, our words, and our actions, and this is the difficult part, we choose whether these thoughts, words, and actions are weeds or fruits. Sometimes it's hard to know. And sometimes, even when we do know, we don't care. Sometimes it's fun to gossip. It doesn't do anything that's life-affirming, but it's kind of fun. Sometimes it's fun to play the victim. You get attention. It's so easy to focus on the negative. I also have in here that it's fun to rant. It's fun to be angry sometimes. It's powerful, it feels powerful. Short-term, fake power. If we're truly attractive beings, though, we must give no attention at all to that stuff. If we don't want it in our lives, we don't want to attract it to our lives, we don't want to think about it. We must weed out of our thoughts anything that does not align with our fruit. We cannot create more peace when we're in a state of war. We cannot create more joy when we're in a place of anger. We cannot create more love in our lives if we are in a state of hatred. If we create all the time and we are aware of the creative power that we have, then it must follow that if we want more joy in our lives, we need to serve and show up as joy. We need to focus on joy. We need to laugh more. If we want more peace, we need to show up as peace. And if we want more love, we need to show up as love. So, today is the first day of Lent, Sunday of Lent. And as you probably know, many people choose to give up something for Lent. Some people give up chocolate, others give up meat, some give up coffee. My mom, sitting at the back there, used to give up smoking. And then she'd be delighted to start up again on Easter Sunday, but that's a whole nother story. Why at Lent do we give up something that matters to us? Because it helps us to be mindful of whatever spiritual goal that we set for ourselves. Because every time we crave that goodie, we have an opportunity to bring ourselves back and remind ourselves of whatever spiritual goal we've set. It basically helps us to reset our awareness. Now, at Unity, we've decided that giving up physical pleasure would be just too easy. And so, we use Lent as an opportunity to give up something that's much more challenging. It ties in with what we've spoken about today. At Unity, we think that our thoughts are our garden, and we use the acronym LENT to remind us of how important our thinking is. Let's eliminate negative thinking. That's a pretty hard habit to break. It's easier to give up chocolate. Even me. So, they say it takes 21 days to break a habit. Today is February the 22nd. Easter is 41 days away. And I invite you to have some fun with me with this. Doesn't all have to be serious. But here's what I want you to consider. Please only do this if you feel like it. You don't have to. Obviously, nothing we do is something you have to do. But it might be fun. So what I want you to do is this. I want you to think of a thought or a behavior or a word or a habit, something that you do habitually that no longer serves you and that you are ready to release. You don't have to tell anybody what it is. It could be a word. It could be what you say to yourself about your height, your weight, your hair, your health. It could be anything of those kind. It could be your skills. It could be that you don't think that you're a very good cook. Whatever things that you are saying to yourself that are not in alignment with love, joy, peace, gentleness, kindness, you get it. I want you to think of anything that in any way diminishes your light that you do habitually. And then for the next 40 days, I want you to take one of these bracelets, and Ken's got them and we'll pass them around, and put them on your hand, on one arm. And when you find yourself exercising your habit, I invite you to flip it to the other arm. And you might consider having some kind of an affirmation that goes with it. So, today we've spoken about seeding, weeding, and feeding, so you could use that. You could use anything. Always look on the bright side of life. Everything is holy. Anything. Pick something that just reminds you that you are divinity in expression. And think of something. And this is what success will look like. Success will look like breaking the bracelet. Because you've broken it, because you've moved it around so often that you're becoming more and more mindful of your pattern. And I'm sorry, they are kids, so they're a little small for the guys. You can also, they're a little pink, so, you know, if you want to choose something that's a little bit, it doesn't have to be this at all, I just picked it. The idea is just to have fun, seriously to have fun, but it's also to be very clear about how important and how much power we carry with us unconsciously every day with our habits. So as we leave here today, let's remember, we are creative beings. We create at the level of love or at the level of fear, with our souls, with our seeds, with our thoughts. Let us sow good. Let's release our weeds. Let us feed our gardens of love, of joy, of peace. When we seed and we weed and we feed with thoughts of love, we will change the world. The divinity in me honors the divinity in you. Namaste.